In this episode of Religious Studies and Warrior Cats, or whatever this series is called, I don't know anymore, we will be talking about space. Pretty much all religions have a sacred space. Churches, mosques, temples, Jerusalem, the Forbidden City in China, Ayers Rock in Australia, etc. And it's not just religions that have important spaces. The White House, the National and State Capitol buildings, local restaurants, museums, all are important to the culture of the people who live in or near them. It might seem pretty straightforward, but many philosophers study the relationship between space and identity. Duns Scotus, who is actually the unwilling namer of the dunce cap, but that's a story for another day, theorizes that we cannot experience God outside of a particular place. In the first arc of Warrior Cats, this was very much true. Though clan leaders and medicine cats often visit StarClan in dreams while sleeping in their own nests, it is rare for lay people, lay cats, to experience StarClan outside of Moonstone visits unless something seriously supernatural is going on. Later in the series, those rules become looser, but it's also been established as early as the Firestar's Quest Super Edition that StarClan rarely moves beyond the area where the clans inhabit. Interesting, that's a topic for a much... Philip Sheldrake is known for his idea that buildings are text. Humans, or in this case cats, define space. It is important here to make the distinction between space and place. A place is neutral, it has no meaning. Humans apply meaning to it and turn it into a space. An open field, for example, is just a field until it's turned into a parking lot, a development, a playground, or a clan territory, for example. Space, in this instance, refers to what we do with a particular geographic location or place. When Sheldrake says that buildings are texts, he doesn't just mean the text of a book. A long time ago, most of the population was illiterate. That's why churches had the Stations of the Cross and paintings or dioramas on the walls, and Bible stories in the stained glass windows, so that people who can't read can still learn the stories. The architecture of a space informs the occupants of how they are supposed to feel. Cathedrals are towering, dark buildings with arches that draw the eye up, seemingly into nothingness. This is meant to make the occupant feel small, and to understand God as something above and beyond. That's just one hilariously simplified example, and I don't want this to turn into the hour-long lecture I had to sit through. Now, cats obviously cannot create complex architecture. In this series, they can do basic nest weaving like birds do, but the buildings they create are only used to reinforce the existing environment. Only RiverClan adds any architectural flourishes, and that's mostly because they have access to pretty river pebbles and just like the way they look. However, the clans do have sacred spaces that exist in a place that they have given meaning to. The Moonstone and the Moonpool. The way the clans see their ancestors changes between the Old Forest and the New Forest. The way the Moonstone in the Old Forest is described is much like a cathedral. To reach it, a cat has to crawl through a pitch-dark tunnel before emerging into a cave with a glowing stone in the center. There is a hole in the roof of the cave to let the moonlight in, and when the moonlight is refracted through the Moonstone, the cats can access StarClan. It's a high arching place with very little light, meant to draw the eye toward the center where the Moonstone is. It's also a small, quiet place meant for only a few cats at a time. It encourages quiet reflection and a sense of isolation. It's also cold, and according to sleep studies, a lower room temperature encourages people to fall asleep faster. Dreams happen to be how StarClan speaks to cats, so that makes sense. Interestingly, this is an example of monastic mysticism, where religious experiences occur internally, shut off from nature. Being a society of feral cats, one would think that the natural mysticism, where religious experiences occur in the natural world or outside the self, would be the norm. When the Old Forest was torn down and the cats had to move to the lake territories, they had to find a new axis mundi. Leafpool found the Moonpool, which is how she got her medicine cat name. The Moonpool, unlike the Moonstone, is reached by going up a hill instead of underground. There are dimples in the rock where countless generations of cats have walked the same path. The moon pool is open to the stars and reflects them in the still pond, bringing StarClan more down to earth. To contact StarClan, a cat must touch their nose to the pool. How no cat has drowned from inhaling water in their sleep, I'll never know. It's more common in the moon pool to actually see StarClan in this space instead of just in dreams. This reflecting pool makes it appear as if the stars are at the level of the cats as well as in the sky above them, and the lake that the territories surround further reinforces this image. The gathering island is in the middle of it more or less. Not really. Close enough. And it just so happens that in the Lake Territory arcs, StarClan plays a more active and intimate role in the lives of the clans, as opposed to the distant and ambiguous role they play in the Old Territory. I'm not sure if this is what the Aarons intended, but this also mirrors the change in many religions in modern times, especially Christianity. Since Vatican II, in the more recent translation of the Roman Catholic Church's Missal, Masses have become more inclusive. They've gone from being in Latin to being in the language of the people. Barriers between clergy and lay people were removed. Architecture has become less grandiose, with lower ceilings and plainer walls. Round churches have also entered the picture. They draw the eye toward the people surrounding the altar, not up toward the sky. Since these changes, more and more lay people are reporting religious experiences where they feel God communicating with them personally. As we define space, space defines us.